Vinyl DJs have to be some of the most passionate people in the world when it comes to the craft of DJing. Whenever I see DJs that use CDJs or controllers post video content online, rest assured the vinyl DJs are very, very quick to jump on those bits of content to say, that doesn't impress me, it's not proper DJing because it's not using vinyl turntables, and comments like this. So I thought for today's video, it would be really interesting to show you a bit of a comparison. I've got the setup behind me, but a bit of a comparison between DJing on CDJs and also DJing on vinyl, and why vinyl DJs are so passionate about the craft. Now, in this video, I'm not trying to divide people or anything like that by saying that DJing on vinyl is the only method for real DJing and DJing on CDJs is not worthwhile at all. That's not the idea behind it at all. But what I hope to show you is where some of that passion comes from and why vinyl DJs are so passionate about the craft of DJing, because it certainly is a skill to DJ or to be able to DJ on vinyl. And I'm somebody that used to be able to DJ on vinyl. I'm very, very rusty now because that's how I started. I then moved to CD and now I'm on digital methods like controllers and CDJs. So I have a bit of a background and I've been able to play with both methods, and so I thought I would share with you the different things to consider when DJing on both formats. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. So welcome along to the DJ setup for this demonstration. So I've got two CDJ 3000s. The CDJ setup, to be honest, is quite interchangeable with the controller, and I've got one vinyl turntable here. I honestly regret selling my 1210s back in the day, but because I don't really DJ on vinyl that much anymore, I like to have a bit of nostalgia, but I've only got one turntable here. So before we really start to consider some of the mechanics of mixing on whichever chosen format that you have decided, let's look at the fundamental differences of the CDJ or controller and a vinyl turntable side by side. And you can see immediately, look, we've got a track loaded in the CDJ and we've got a piece of vinyl on the turntable, and you can instantly see that on the CDJ or the controller via your laptop screen, you are at an instant advantage in terms of the information available to you in comparison to what you have on a vinyl turntable. Bear with me while I am moving the camera around a little bit. It's going to be a little bit tricky to get everything in shot, so I hope that this gives you a bit of an accurate demonstration. You can't see everything on this screen because I'm zoomed in as much as I can be, but you get the idea. First and foremost, you load a track into a CDJ, you have got information at your fingertips like the BPM readout, you've got the key information, you've even got the waveform, and if you're not on a CDJ, this will be on your laptop screen. You don't need to worry too much about beat jump and quantize and all of that. Even this information that I've just explained is so powerful. The other piece of information as well that you don't get on a vinyl turntable is how much the tempo is adjusted by. So if I move the tempo slider, which is just out of shot here, in the bottom right hand corner, you adjust that and you get a readout here as to how much you have adjusted the speed of the record by. Okay, so that's really quite powerful. And then of course within the waveform, because of the technology built into the CDJ, you can also store cue points and multiple cue points at that. We're going to come on to cue points in a lot more detail because how you cue records is fundamentally different on both mediums. Now if we jump across back to the turntable very quickly, then you can see that whilst we have all that information on the CDJ, well, we've got absolutely, let me just try and zoom out a bit here. There we go. You have absolutely none of that. You have essentially a record on a platter which is basically ready to go. Now you can adjust the speed of the record depending on if it's a single or an album, sort of by 33 RPM or 45 RPM. That's just how quickly the turntable moves. You can see that you've got the target light, so that will help you queue up your tracks, and we'll come on to that later. So you can see the vinyl, it lights up the vinyl a bit. And then in the bottom right hand corner, you have got a tempo adjust, but no readout. So you can see if we adjust the tempo to there is a 2, a 4, a 6, and an 8, and you do have a tempo range as well, but it doesn't give you a digital readout as to how much you've actually adjusted the record by, and it certainly doesn't have a BPM counter either. So you do have to bear that all in mind. So now I've shown you the information that is available on both mediums. I've now jumped back over to the CDJ setup because I'm going to do a bit of a demonstration showing you a simple mix, basically showing you how you put this information into practice. Now I will say that I am focusing primarily on CDJ mixing versus traditional vinyl DJing. If you use a DVS system or it's called digital vinyl system like Serato, of course you're going to have a little bit more information available to you on your laptop screen. This is really focusing on the core differences between CDJs, controllers and traditional vinyl DJing, okay, and the mechanics that are involved with that. We've got a track loaded in here. Let's hit record. So we'll press play first and foremost on this track. Now the first thing before we even start mixing, and this is going to be a very simple beat mix, we're not going to be focused on looping or hot cues or anything like that because that's not available on vinyl turntables, unfortunately. It's literally mixing one into the other is the real true comparison here. But if you notice here, as soon as I hit play or cue, on the CDJ, it's an instant start. And you can also save the cue points, of course, in the software, on your USB, on your laptop, of course. So you could jump to different cue points at the touch of a button. So that is so much quicker. It's so easy. So when it comes to mixing, because of that instant start and because of the BPM readouts, it makes life very, very easy for you because all you have to do is hit play on the next track as long as it's in time. Some minor adjustments. Obviously phrasing and everything is off because we're just showing you a demonstration, but you saw how quickly it was to get that in time. You've got an instant start on both the tracks. You can match the BPMs via the readout, and as long as you sort of adjust things to make sure it is in time very, very slightly on the jog wheels, which is also pretty instantaneous in terms of controlling that speed, it's going to be a very, very quick and easy way to mix your tracks together. And then this is where I think CDJs have taken almost like the strain away from mixing, allowing DJs to do more complex techniques using loops, using hot cues, and the other tools available at your disposal. Okay, so now we're back on the vinyl turntable. You see I've moved the needle onto the record. Now the first thing is, you notice on the CDJ, the cue point loaded straight away at the start of the track, and you can basically hit play and you're ready to go. The same cannot be said about a vinyl turntable. You have to actually find your cue point manually. And you would do this by moving the record. So we can see if we want the cue point to be at the start of the record, you've found the first beat. And it's basically a case of releasing the record when you want it to start. So that's the first thing to note. And this is why a lot of vinyl DJs who knew their records inside out had little stickers all over their records, because that is their way of locating the cue point. Second thing to note is the start and stop speed. So say for example, you found your cue point and it's there. We know it's there. So as soon as the track you're mixing out of is ready to be, you're ready to bring in the next track and you want to start your record, rather than hitting play on the CDJ and it starting instantly, with a vinyl turntable, because this is a physical motor, it's going to take a couple of seconds to get up to the speed, which is the BPM that's playing. So you can hear there, it takes a little bit of time for that motor to catch up. And it's a little bit like, if we jump back onto the CDJ, it's a little bit like when you adjust the touch, release and the brake. And that's why it's there really for the vinyl, for the ex-vinyl DJs to have a bit more of a natural feel. But what this also means is that you are going to have to be constantly adjusting the speed in order to beat match it to the outgoing record using the tempo, but also as well some manipulation of the platter. Hence why it's quite similar to what you would do on the jog wheel. The only difference is you're dealing with something that's actually physically moving as opposed to something that's digital. So the responsiveness is going to vary from deck to deck because it just depends on what motor is inside here. Notice as well, of course, you don't have a reading of the BPM like you do on the CDJs. So you're going to have to do all of the work via your ears. You're going to have to beat match manually. And also you don't have a master tempo. So bear in mind that when you adjust this tempo slider, it's also going to adjust the key of the track as well. So it can make for some very, very interesting blends, and hence why the reliance is on your ears a lot. And this is where vinyl DJs get so passionate, because it takes so much time, it takes so much practice in order to get this right. Now, I'm going to try and attempt a bit of a demonstration now. Of course, I don't have headphones here, but I want to show you, I want it to sound like a bit of a car crash so you can see all of the little minor adjustments it takes in order to get this right. So as you can see by that example there, it started off fairly on time. I actually picked two records that naturally were fairly similar BPMs. However, this one did start to drift a little bit, and you could see there I was trying to make minor adjustments to not only the pitch slider, to of course adjust the overall speed of the motor, going kind of down a bit and up a bit, and it got in time a bit and then it drifted out again a little bit. You also have to make minor adjustments to the actual platter itself while it's spinning to try and slow the motor down a bit. It is an art form and it takes time to do, and especially for long blends, for quick mixing, if you want to just get a couple of bars beat match and then very quickly mix in and mix out, you might get away with it, and it probably doesn't need too much practice. But for longer blends, especially like the old trance DJs back in the day, the big progressive house DJs, it really was an art form. And this is why vinyl DJs are just so passionate about it, because so many hours has gone into not only beat matching by ear and by learning kind of how to manipulate a physical moving motor in order to get the speeds right, but also as well knowing your phrasing without any kind of help from a screen, knowing your keys by purely listening to the different keys. Of course, with the tempo adjust, it does adjust the key as well. It's like a pitch shift as well. So there's so much to learn and to do by ear and manually versus the CDJ, which is why CDJs, yes, are brilliant for more complex techniques with loops and hot cues and, you know, pushing the button really quickly and effects and all the rest of it. But I would say there is definitely an art form in mixing by vinyl, and the basics of beat matching on vinyl is very, very difficult to master. So there we have it, some of the key differences of DJing on vinyl versus CDJ. Now, as I mentioned at the start of this video, this is really just to show you the comparisons and where some of that passion of vinyl DJs comes from, okay? Clearly on the CDJs, you know, it has made mixing a lot easier, but it does open the door to creativity in other ways. Whereas with vinyl, the emphasis was all on beat matching, knowing your tracks inside out, finding cue points all manually. So it is a craft within itself, in my opinion. But as I say, this wasn't supposed to divide people at all. It's just to show you the differences and where some of that passion comes from. Hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please do give me a thumbs up if you have made it this far. And if you haven't yet subscribed, please do hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you in the next video.